Hey, if you're on here, I'm assuming you're here for the drug calc review. What I'll do is I'll have everyone just type in the chat section for questions. So you don't need to have your camera on or your microphone on. But if you do want to say something, of course, you can turn on whatever feature you'd like. So I'll keep my video camera off, but I'll certainly put it back on. And I'm just going to wait until everyone, we got 5 more minutes to show up. And what I'm going to try and do is use the whiteboard feature here on Zoom and see if we can, if I can show you how to navigate some of the questions that you're going to have on the drug calc review. I will also post a link just in case you don't have a copy of the review, so that way you have it for you. And then this will also be recorded, and then I'll share the link with Connie Trauma, and then she'll get it out for you guys. So okay. All right, so I'll be right back. Let me get this up here. Oh, okay. Oops, that meant to go to everyone. So sorry for that person. I just sent that privately. And then I'll respond to your question real quick. Oh, if you're wondering, like, nothing is being displayed right now. So you should just see or hear me talking. Nothing is being displayed right now. In just a moment, though. Hopefully you see that I wrote hi on here. So I have, make sure I can see your chat. No. So the link I just posted on the chat for you guys is access to all my drug calc review, dosage calc review, and it's for all sections. So if you don't have a copy of the practice tests, you can go ahead and get it from there. And then I will be right back because I need to get my copy so I know what questions to answer. So it's right there in the chat section. So if you'll see it says HTTPS CCAC1. It's It's right there in the chat section. If you did not get the link, just scroll up. It might be hidden. And as you guys are logging in, make sure you can turn your videos off and your audio off. You won't need those. So, as I see some of them pop in. So, and I'm keeping my video off for right now. But I figured you don't need to necessarily see my face. You can see my picture there. That's what I look like now. So, all right. So like I said, I'm gonna go grab my video. If you're just coming in, there should be a link in the chat section that tells you how to access the slides, or not the slides, sorry, wrong class. The drug calc reviews I put together. If you don't have that, I'll just, if you're not seeing the link, just type it in and I will just say you don't see the link and I'll put it back in there. Okay. So it may be because you guys, I don't know if it's because it came in. How about now? Can you see it now? Okay, there we go. So it may just not have been there when you came in. So, all right, I'm gonna go grab my handouts. I'll be right back. Hello. While you're waiting for me to get my stuff together, if you have a specific question, if you already looked at the review and you have a specific question, please just type in the question number from the review sheet, and then I will address that question. So, of course, if you haven't looked at the review, then you can't ask a specific question, and I'll go over some of the common things for your section 130. Okay, good. I'm seeing some of your questions coming in, so perfect. Okay. All right. Can everyone can everyone see that I just did a squiggly on my whiteboard? I just want to make sure you guys can see what I'm going to try and write out. Please be patient. I understand that there might be some lag. If my audio seems like terrible, just let me know, we'll try and get that all remedied. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and answer that first question that I saw here. Scroll up about the syringe, and that's a very good question, and that's a commonly missed question. The frustrating thing about nursing drug calc sometimes is the things that you miss has nothing to do with actual math, it has everything to do with the formality. So in that link that I shared before, earlier in the chat, there's a guide, and it shows you where I'm getting this information from when I show you what I'm going to do. This is the correct way to do it per the book. If for some reason you've been taught a different way, what I'm going to encourage you to do is reach out to your lab instructor, the one that's going to be grading the test, and make sure you verify with them how they want you to mark it. And I'll show you how I want you to mark it, we'll go from there. So the first thing is, I'm just going to draw up like a mock-up of a syringe. And do this here. Very fancy syringe there. So first things first, guys, I only have this picture to show you. So the only thing that I can give you as far as the questions for which syringe you're going to choose, it's always going to be B. There's a chance that someone changed the test, but I have a hard time believing that. I have a good feeling that they didn't change necessarily the test questions. The answer choices. So it's always going to be B. Make sure you circle the B syringe. And the reason you're choosing the B syringe is because it's the one with units listed. Now, the first thing that it says is it tells you that your patients should receive 10 units of regular and 40 units of NPH. So you always, hopefully you were taught this already, but you need to draw regular first, followed by whatever else you would draw second. So regular is the clear insulin, and then everything else, or at least everything else that you would see a question like with this, is going to be considered cloud. So the adage is clear before cloudy, okay? Or the way to remember. Now, the way that this is done is a little bit, it's going to seem backwards, but think about it logically. There's a process when you're drawing up insulin. You pull back the syringe up to the total amount, and you're pushing air into your individual insulin containers, your stock. You guys know how to do that more so than I know how to do the application portion, but I'm going to show you how to answer this question. So it tells you that there's 10 units regular and 40 units of NPH for a total of 50 units. The first thing it says is to select syringe A or B, which is always going to be B. Then to mark the solution and amount to be drawn up first, okay? And then the correct total medication level. So I'm going to tell you, when you get to those first two bullet points that are listed there, what I advise you to write is for this particular question, whatever it tells you in regular insulin, I would say regular insulin first. So make sure you write that somewhere that you're drawing up regular insulin first, 10 units regular insulin first. That way you know, and your instructor knows without a shadow of a doubt that you know which one to draw up first. Then make sure you also have a arrow at your total correction, so you could say 50 units for this particular example. Now, what I'm going to tell you to do is start with the 50 units mark. So this would be your mark at 50 units. Okay. Your regular insulin was drawn up first, and this is the total amount after everything's been drawn up together. Your next arrow is actually going to be indicated at the 40 unit mark. Oops. Just going to write 40. And this is actually where your regular is drawn up between these two right here. This is where your regular insulin is existing in a hypothetical sense. I'm not going to tell you that that's where it actually is. If you've drawn this up, you know that it all mixes immediately once it's all put together, but they're wanting you to kind of have the hypothetical of if it were in a vacuumed environment and it stayed close to the plunger side of the syringe, that is where your regular insulin would exist. The rest of the insulin, the 40 units, the rest of this is the NPH. The rest of this through here is your NPH. So if I was going to mark this and be like, and have it be as absolutely correct as possible, that is how I would indicate it. I would make my initial mark at 40 and 50, indicating that between 40 and 50 is where the regular insulin, and I'm doing air quotes, resides. So, you know, technically not there, technically it's all mixed together, but that would indicate that you drew that up first. Okay, you drew up the 40 to 50 part first, and then you pushed another 40 or pulled another 40 into the syringe, which is the NPH. Okay, so that's how you would mark that syringe. This is a little bit better, clearly detailed in the link that I shared with you. So I just want you to call your attention to that link and to do that. And again, if you've seen this answered different ways, you're right, there is some confusion on this question, but what I just marked for you is how you should answer this question. And if you're sitting there going like, it wasn't very clear, I agree with you. But what you should indicate is that the regular is going to be closest to the total mark. You just got to subtract however many from the total there is. So let's say it was 20 regular, then it would be between 50 and 30. Let's say it was 40 regular, it would be between 10 and 50, okay? So you want to indicate where the regular would, quote unquote, hypothetically exist, and it's going to be closer to the plunger side. When I say plunger side, I'm talking about this side right here. That's the plunger side, okay? All right, let me just check your chats here. Do that. Okay. Okay, Robert, thank you for reposting the link. Yeah, share that link. You can share that with anybody, even if they're not on this. Please, by all means, share that link. And like I said, it'll be up in the replay as well. All right, so the next question that was asked, pull that up. All right. All right, question number 18 was the next question that was asked after the syringe question. So let me clear that out. And number 18 says that the order is for 0.9% sodium chloride, 500 milliliters IV at 125 milliliters per hour. How long will this infusion take? So a lot of times, some of these questions are actually easier than they seem. And here's what I mean. All you're going to do with this is you're going to take the 500 milliliters divided by 125. That's your answer. Keep it very, very simple. Now, I am somebody who's an advocate of using dimensional analysis when I set up my problems, and I'll show you how that is. You can also do desired over have, but some of these questions, desired over have doesn't necessarily make sense, or quantity over have, or quantity over stock, or however you learn that. It works for a lot of the questions that you guys get, but some of these drop rate questions and flow rate questions, that desired over have setup doesn't necessarily work. So let me show you how this would turn out. And then what I'm going to do is, give me 1 second, I just need to reposition my tablet here. All right, so when I go and do the number 18 question, like I said, I'm going to do this as if I am doing a dimensional analysis setup. I would start with the 500 milliliters as what was given to me, times, then I would create a comparison here, and it tells me 125 milliliters per hour. And the reason I like to do this, guys, is because guess what? Now I know I'm doing this right because I've eliminated milliliters and I'm left with hours. Okay, hours is what I'm looking for. How long will this take? The answer, 4 hours. When they ask you to show your work, this is essentially what they're asking you to do, is to show how you came to your conclusion. And if you can do it any variety of way. If you just said, if you were just in your head, you said, okay, I know it's 500, 125 times, hour, and I got 4, you're doing that right. I'm not here to tell you that you're doing it wrong. There's many different ways to do these particular types of problems. I'll just confirm that you're doing it the right way in case you have any confusion on it.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. If you have a question, you can type it in, but if it's about this problem, go ahead.
Okay. We just write 4 hours, that's it.
Yep, 4 hours is your answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. And I want to make sure that I told you that in the key. Yeah. Yeah, so if you're wondering, like you may have seen other questions that ask you like time of day or day of week or something like that. That would be something, you don't have a question like that, but you'll see that question in another section of the drug calc test. All right, what was the other question? Okay. So I had those two, question 24, I skipped, sorry. Actually, that's a very good question. Paulina, you asked about question 24. So when, sometimes there's extraneous information, you do not need to use the 300 milligrams for the calculation. 300 milligrams just tells you how much to administer after the bolus dose or the loading dose. And so right now it's just asking you what is the loading dose. So you would start off by converting the patient's weight from pounds to kilograms, and then you would just multiply that number by 15, and that's where you would start, and then you would do 300 milligrams per day. All right. Okay. Thank you. Yes. All right. So far I've gone over question 15, 18, and then I answered a question on 24. I can go over number 20, so I'll do that next. Thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. All right, so I'll actually write this in the corner here that we're doing question 20. That way, in case someone comes in. Okay, so before we do anything, I have to first tell you how we calculate flow or drop rates. So drop rates is a matter of looking at the flow rate times the drop factor. That equals the drop rate. The flow rate is usually milliliters per hour. The drop factor is always drops per milliliter, and the drop rate is always drops per minute. In this question, it tells me 1440 cc's. Now, hopefully you know that milliliters equals cc's, so they're the same. And since we know that, we just interject that. So we can just say, we can start off with 1440 over 12. That's 1440 cc's per hour. I will always give you the drop factor. Now, if you're at another campus, if you're at South, if you're at North, if you're at Boyce, they may not give you the drop factor. They might tell you like it's microtubing, and microtubing is 60 drops per milliliter. And it's a standard that you're supposed to know. At Allegheny campus, I've always given a variety of different tubings because and different numbers, and they've always been given to the Allegheny campus students. But if you're at another campus, just you need to know that there's some common ones, and I know that microtubing is 60 drops per milliliter. All right, so it tells us that it's 10 drops per milliliter. Now again, the reason I set it up the way I set it up here is, first of all, it's very difficult to do desired over half with these types of problems. And also, since we know that cc's and milliliters are the same, and then we have what we're looking for is drops over time, that I've eliminated any issue of doing this wrong. The last little step here is you just got to remember to convert hours to minutes. And so you can just add another thing here if you want to, or you can just multiply the bottom number by 60 once you get a chance, and then solve for the question, okay? I believe the answer comes out to be 20 drops per minute. Was that helpful for you, Destiny? You're welcome. Okay. And you've got plenty of practice. So one of the, question number 16 is just like this question. The difference is you don't have to do the last step of hours per minute. You don't have to do that conversion because it's already in minutes. So like if I was setting up that problem, which I'll go ahead and do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out number 20. Come back. And we'll do, this is number 16, so question 16. And it says 75 milliliters, 25 minutes, times the drop factor, which is 15 drops per milliliter. And you know we're doing it right because we're left with what we're looking for. So there's no reason to convert that back to minutes, back to hours, okay? So we leave it at that, and we come up with 45 drops per minute. Sometimes this gets asked in the 130 class. Always multiply across the top, divide by the bottom. And then, of course, if you see that you can reduce, like 75 over 25 is 3 over 1, times 3 times 15 is 45. That's how I did that. But you have a calculator that you get to use on this test. So use the calculator to your advantage. All right. Yes, we can do number 22 next. All right, number 22 trips people up because I think people just overthink it. But number 22, the first thing is where you see, so where you see the category milliliters diluent added, go ahead and just put a big X through that section because you don't need that information to answer the question. That is there because that is how you would be presented on the drug label. The label itself just tells the pharmacist or perhaps the nurse to how much deionized water to add to the powder in order to get to the solution or the concentration that's desired. So you can see that there's 3 different units per milliliter solution. Those are the 3 different constitutions or concentrations, which is the same thing, of this Pfizer pen. So when you're solving this question, if you're a desired over half person, this one works great. You need, or you're ordered, I should say ordered over half, your ordered is 750,000 units over, and it says to choose the strongest concentration. So the strongest concentration is going to be the one with the most units per milliliter. So that's the 1 million. That'd be too many. I think so. Oops, I did. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So 750,000 units over 1 million units. And I'm going to be honest with you, you're going to be using a basic 10 key calculator, and you can make mistakes by having not putting enough zeros or putting too many zeros. Look at the number that has the smallest number of zeros. So 750,000 units has 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. You can put a line through those 4 zeros and then an equivalent line through those 4 zeros in the 1 million. 75 over 100 is much easier to put into your calculator, and you're less likely to make mistakes. And your answer to this question is 0.75. Now, you would leave it at 0.75 because according to your rounding rules, a number less than 1, you round to the nearest 100. So the 100th is where the 5 is. There's no number behind it, so you can't, round it up, and you wouldn't necessarily round it down. You just leave it there, okay? If you had a number that was like 1.75 milliliters, then you would look at the nearest 10th and you would round that up to 1.8 milliliters. When you guys get into your 3rd semester, you will do pediatric dosage calculations, and those rules change just a little bit as far as the rounding questions, but you don't need to worry about that for the 2nd semester. So, but just a glimpse of things to come. Okay. All right. So question 9 asks for a medication that is scheduled 2 times per day, but the answer key gives us per dose amount, where the question 10 specifically asks for per dose amount. How do you know if they're asking per dose or total in 24-hour periods? Good question. So in on the test, that should have been remedied and rectified, so there shouldn't be an issue with that. If it doesn't tell you per day, always assume per dose. If it doesn't tell you, always assume per dose. Because if you think about it, at least the way that I've seen it written in the books, meaning like the resource material for this, and then also like thinking about you as a practicing nurse, a lot of times you're not with that patient for a 24-hour period. You just need to know how much to administer per dose. Or maybe it just comes from the pharmacy and they need to know how much to administer to the patient per dose. So if it doesn't tell you, assume per dose, but always read and make sure what it's asking you. But that's the difference. That's why there's a difference. You're welcome, Eric. For those of you wondering, the practice tests that I've put together, they mirror the types of questions that you will see on the tests that I've also put together. The differences are you might see different drug labels. You're going to definitely see different numbers for different calculations, and you just need to pay attention to that. The content is about the same. Okay, you'll have 25 questions, all that are short answer. You got to show your work, and even if that just means writing a few things down. If you had Professor Nanju last semester when you took this thing, assuming I don't know how COVID affected your guys's drug calc in the spring. But if it did, then you may have had an alternative drug calc test. I just don't remember. I think I did do a review for the spring semester. You guys probably already took that test prior to school closing down. But anyways, you know that Professor Nanju was will go and ask you to explain your answers if you don't show your work. And so I just want to make sure you show your work. Of course, you don't have Professor Nanju for 2nd semester, so I don't know if you need to worry about that with anybody else. Okay. Okay, yeah, somebody asked for clarity on numbers 17 and 19. I'll do that. Okay, I should also say that if you, oh, Paulina, that's a good question. So for number 9, I think the answer to that is no. No, because you just want to know how much to give them per dose. So like it says 500 milligrams BID. Okay, so that means you're going to give them 500 milligrams twice a day. Since there's 250 milligram capsules, you just need to know you're going to give them 2 capsules per dose, and then you're going to give them 2 doses per day. So you would need at least a total of 4 capsules, but you would need 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, or however they divide that out. So no, you do not need to factor in BID for question 9. You need to know what that means, that it means by, twice daily or every 12 hours, but not to answer that question. If the question had stated specifically how many capsules per day, then yes, you need to know. Okay, so let me get into 17 and 19 for clarification purposes. So 17 says you have a patient who's being tube fed. They're receiving 120 milliliters in 90 minutes, and to calculate the flow rate. Believe it or not, this question is commonly missed, and it's because of an overthinking issue. So let me clarify what I mean by that. So it asks you the flow rate in milliliters per hour, but what you're given is 120 milliliters in 90 minutes. And you might be thinking, well, how do I calculate that? So all you need to do is convert minutes to hours, okay? So you know that 60 minutes is in 1 hour, and that's how you answer this question. I know my pen doesn't stay on there very well if I don't press hard enough. So you would do 120 times 60 divided by 90, and that would actually give you your answer. And I think the answer, or I have it with me, is 80 milliliters per hour. So it's just a matter of setting it up. Keeping in mind that like one of the ways that this also gets written out that can be very confusing, because you're setting this on an infusion pump. I mean, obviously not with NUR. They just, that was just the example the book had given. But another variation of this might be, let's say it was 120 milliliters in 30 minutes. And then it was asked to calculate milliliters per hour. You'd still do the same thing. But the thing that drives people nuts is that the answer to this is 240 milliliters per hour. You might be thinking like, well, I'm not going to be giving them 240 milliliters. And the answer is, you're right, but you would set the infusion rate as milliliters. It's the same thing as saying, like, let's say you and I are going to Kennywood, and we're going to go driving there. You go 60 miles an hour. I go 30 miles per hour. We're both going to cover the same distance. It's just that you're going to get there twice as fast as I am. Okay. It's just a matter that this is just a rate. It's not an amount. Okay. Question 19 is the same thing. So let me clear this out. You're going to take the 375 milliliters over 3 hours, and then you just reduce. And that equals 125 milliliters per hour. A lot of times these questions don't necessarily have any kind of additional workflow that needs to be accomplished, but sometimes that drives you nuts because you're looking like, what do I multiply? What do I divide? What kind of conversion do I need to do? That's all that it is. So that was question 17 and 19. Okay, and then question 23. Okay, so question 23, you know how to do this because you've done it in previous things. You're just going to calculate the milliliters for the visceral. You're going to calculate the milliliters for the meperidine, and you're going to add those milliliters together. There's there's a possibility that my key is wrong in case you got the right answer, but it was written wrong. So I'll work it out with you guys just to be on the safe side. So let's start off with visceral. So this is question 23. And the visceral, I'm just going to indicate that as a V, says 60 milligrams. Okay. Now, if you're doing desired over half, this works out great. So you just do 60 milligrams over the 50 milligrams times the 1 milliliter. And then for the meperidine, that's going to be 85 milligrams over the 75 milligrams times 1 milliliter. You're welcome. Someone just thanked me privately, so I just want to say you're welcome. For the visceral, can someone tell me what you got when you do 60 divided by 50? And I'll pull up my calculator so I can do it without waiting on that. Good. That's what I got too. Thank you, Natalia, Denisa, and Amanda. So 1.2. And then what do you get for the meperidine? I got 1.13333. Okay, so we only care about up to the 10th place when we do these. So if this doesn't affect the rounding of it at all, you can just ignore anything past the 10th place. And you're just going to add these two together and you'll get the 2.3 milliliters. My key says 2.3, and the key that should be on the link should be also 2.3. But I know that some of my keys, I had it keyed wrong. So I'd like to tell you that that's probably the answer key for that particular question for the exam. But I know that that question is not on everyone's exam. So, okay. So 25 is a beast. I'm not even sure if it's on your test, but they asked me to put it on there. So that means that there's a potential to be on your test. So yes, Carol, we can certainly go over question 25. So let's do that. So question 25. So question 25 tells us that we have 500 micrograms of entecavir per day via NG for a patient with chronic hepatitis B. The oral solution contains 0.05 milligrams per milliliter. How many milliliters of this antiviral would you administer? So the trick to this question is you cannot do conversions if you have things in different units, meaning that if you have one in micrograms and one in milligrams, you need to change one. And you get to decide which one you want to do. So we don't have to mess with the per milliliter. I'm just going to go ahead and convert the 500 micrograms to milligrams. And so you can do that a couple of ways. You can just move your decimal point over. But for practice purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and write 500 micrograms times the conversion that you should already know. There are 1,000 micrograms in 1 milligram. And you need to know those conversions. You should have been exposed to that when you were in your first semester, so you know that you need to know those things. So we get rid of micrograms, we're left with milligrams, so that gives me 0.5 milligrams as my ordered dose, okay? Now, I'm going to now take, and this is where you can do desired over half if you want. I'm going to stick with the what I'm doing right now, which is conventional analysis. I'm going to take the 0.5 milligrams times 0.05 milligrams per milliliter. And then I'm going to get, I think the answer is 10. Yeah, 10 milliliters. And I'm constantly doubting myself that I gave you the wrong answers. Yep, you're welcome, Carl. For those of you who don't already know, I'm the one who writes your tests. I wrote them a while ago, and then your instructors administer those tests. They've also had the liberty to change those tests, so I can't tell you that they're all going to be exactly the ones that I've written over the years. But I just want you to know who's doing these reviews in case you don't already know who I am. The reviews, I put together the reviews, I put together the packets, I put together the tests, and then, like I said, then I do these to try and help answer some of the questions. If you haven't heard about it yet already, I also have a YouTube channel that goes over some of this stuff as well. And it's free to you guys. You can certainly use it. You don't have to subscribe or anything, you just watch it. If you go to YouTube and then look for, I think it's Dr. Rad, that's what I go by here at CCAC, and then I believe it's called the Rad Tutor. It's all one word. But you'll see my picture when you go and search for that. So if you go to YouTube, search for Dr. Rad, the Rad Tutor, you'll see my picture, which is the same picture that shows up here, me wearing a blue shirt with tie, and you'll see some of my videos there. My most popular video posted there is on the heparin protocol, which you'll get to suffer through next semester. You don't have to worry about the heparin protocol this semester. If you're sitting there and you're wondering, and you want to ask a question, but you're concerned or embarrassed or whatever, just send it privately, and then I will address the question. And then while you're sitting there waiting for someone else to ask a question, I have a question for you. Are you able to read my handwriting? Is there too much lag? How is this, given this virtual review session that we're doing? Okay, it's okay. Okay, legible, thanks. Okay, good. That's perfect. Thank you, Natalia. Well, you guys addressed many of the questions. Did any of you have any questions on the fluid intake questions, like question number 6, when you talk about how much fluids to replace with urine out after urine output? Some semesters that's good, some semesters that's not so good. If you got the right answer, then you're doing it right. And the only thing I can do is change the output and the replacement volume. So, okay, yeah, we can do 6. So 6 goes like this. And there's no real easy way to answer this question. You can do you can get fancy with your math. And you can do a ratio type of setup, which is what I've done in the past. Or you can do a multiplication type setup. And so this is how I usually do it. So I usually start with the output first, and I'd say, okay, the actual output was 500 milliliters. Okay. Then it says that for every 125 milliliters of output, you replace with 40 milliliters. So you can create a dimensional analysis that looks like this. 125 over 40. The problem is everything's in milliliters, right? And so that can make it kind of challenging to remember which is what. So I would just say like this is the out, and then this is the in. Okay, that's just a way to remember that. So O for out and I for in. Question 6. And then you're just going to get, what is it, 160 milliliters? 160. But if you set it up this way every single time, you will get it right. If you prefer the desired over have setup, it would just be 500 over 125 times 40 is how you would set that up. The only thing I can change on this question is how much they actually voided, and then the every volume amount, and then the replacement volume. So I can change any of those numbers, but this is how you would set it up: out over out times in. And if you go into the the third semester and the fourth semester practice test, you could see very different numbers that I used for this. Yep, you're welcome. Well, I have to say I'm very glad that you guys were able to hop on this and asking questions. I will be doing your the second semester review again this afternoon, I think around 3. And then also on Thursday at noon, and then I think again at 3. So if you have any other questions, by all means, please feel free to hop on or ask someone else to ask the question. That link that I shared with you guys, please share it with whomever. It's there for you to get the information. If I make any updates from now until then, or now until your test, which will be, I guess, next week, it'll be reflected in those, but I don't anticipate making any changes at this point. So if there's no other questions, then feel free to log off. But if you have any other questions, you can go ahead and ask, and then go from there. You're welcome. I believe that is correct, Jennifer. The test is on your first day of lab. All right. Someone just asked about question 14, so let's do that real quick. Okay. So the fun thing about question 14 is, you're welcome, Amanda. You're welcome, Jennifer. Question 14 is there's no math involved here. So if the patient's blood glucose was 200, then you look at the range for 200. So it says 2 units, so you would just administer 2 units. Oh, absolutely, Paulina. I will give you my email address. Have access to that. Make sure that goes through. Yeah, so my email address is my first initial and then my last name. I know I saw DJ in here, so I've had some of you in class before. I teach over in the biology department, so you may have had me for class. Oh, okay. So let me see if I can answer your question about 21. Well, you don't. I would argue that you don't need to cross multiply. You just take the 60 and divide it by the strongest dose, and that would be how you get that. So how I would set that up is like this, Jennifer, for question 21. So it tells you to choose it says using the strongest concentration. The strongest concentration is 20 milligrams. So if I'm doing desired, ordered over half, I'm going to take my 60 milligrams divided by the 20 milligrams times the milliliter. So when you say cross multiply, I don't know if that means what I just wrote or if you're doing it a different way. But if you got the same answer, if you got 3 mil, then we're both talking the same. Okay, no, that's fine. Over the years, I've learned that a lot of people say cross multiply, and they don't really mean cross multiply. That's just you're having your your recall nightmares of college algebra, math 90 or 108 or whatever math number that is. All right. Any other questions? Yep, you're very welcome. I'm just glad that we can still do this. Thank God for Zoom, because it definitely makes this very, very easy. Okay, so good question, Antonia. So I knew to choose the 20 milligrams because it said in the question at the bottom, it says determine the volume in milliliters for the strongest concentration. So the strongest concentration is going to be the highest number. You're welcome. You're welcome. And I should also apologize in advance if I said anyone's name wrong. I do apologize. I should ask everyone to type in their names phonetically in the chat box. So. Right now, the only practice questions I have are the ones listed on the link. I don't know that answer, Amanda. So like, I don't know how much, I know that there is some, they're going back to some in-class like learning. So yeah, if you're asking if they're using the lockdown browser for this test and the computer calculator, that's a possibility. I have not been informed on that. So I don't know. I don't know that answer. Yeah. I wish I could give you more information, but I do not know. But you could certainly do this test with the respondents lockdown. I'm sure it's very possible. I just don't know that how they're going to have you take this test. Yeah, if you're going to be in person in lab, then yeah, you won't. Most likely, you're just going to take it pen and paper, unless you're trying to limit pen and paper stuff. But I don't know about that. That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. Someone just said like your clinicals are in person. So. Okay. Well, there's no other questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And then, like I said, you're welcome to jump on any of the other review sessions and ask questions as they go along. You can certainly jump in any of the other semester questions as well, because there's a lot of overlap with some of the questions. You just want to kind of peer in and see what's going on. So, yep, you're welcome, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me and feel free to join in on the other sessions. And if I don't see or hear from you, good luck. I hope you do well on the test and have a great semester. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I don't have, if you're asking more questions to work on, like if I have more, I don't have any more already prepared. I just have the 25 questions that are here. What I typically instruct people to do is just change the variables around, or you can also explore, do like a Google search and see if you can find other questions of similar caliber. And if you need clarification on them, you can always email me those questions. I'll be happy to explain those to you.